Hello everyone, welcome to Titans of History. Today we'll be talking about the Battle of Kursk. The Eastern Front of World War II was where most of the fighting occurred in Europe. One of the most important battles was the Battle of Kursk. This battle was significant because it was Germany's chance to pull off a victory after a streak of setbacks in the East and in the Mediterranean. Alright, let's get right into it. We'll look at the strategies for both sides and the outcome of the battle. In the first year of the war, Germany managed to push through the Soviet Union to within 100 miles of Moscow. The Soviet Union held their ground, however, when it mattered most, and had gained a fairly recent victory in the Battle of Stalingrad. The Germans had been steadily losing ground since 1942. This included in Africa and just recently in Sicily. They needed a major victory to turn things around and signal to their allies that they still had a chance in winning the war. The Battle of Kursk was how the German leadership planned to turn things around. Germany had lost hundreds of thousands of men since the start of Operation Barbarossa, which meant their offensive needed to rely on their armored divisions. The Soviets outnumbered the Germans in terms of men, tanks, and guns. The attack was signed off on by Hitler in March, but repeated setbacks and time waiting for reinforcements resulted in the attack not beginning until July of 1943. While the Germans were outnumbered, the quality of their soldiers was arguably higher, and their tank divisions were in theory much better than the Soviet tanks. The Soviets' best mainstream medium tank, the T-34, lacked the firepower to stand against German Panthers and Tigers. They did have tank destroyers, but only about 50 that could counter German heavy tanks. The battle was in many ways another clear representation of how the German versus Soviet fight was pitting two different strategic doctrines against each other. The Germans were counting on superior technology and training, whereas the Soviets planned a war of attrition with the numbers to back it up. The German strategy was to encircle a large number of slightly overextended forces in the region of Kursk, otherwise known as a salient. The Germans aimed to attack from the south and the north simultaneously. A large number of troops would be captured, with the aim for them to be used as slaves for Germany's industry. The Soviet defense was helped by intelligence gathering from the British. They knew the attack would be on Kursk months in advance, which gave them valuable time to prepare a tough defense. The defensive preparations included minefields, fortifications, artillery fire zones, and anti-tank strongpoints, which extended approximately 300 kilometers in depth, or 190 miles. The Soviets aimed to slow the Germans down while slowly retreating, in order to wear down the German attack. The Soviets also kept most of their mobile forces, such as tanks and trucks, in reserve for a counterattack. The Germans naturally observed the preparations of the Soviets, and as the months dragged on, the attack and encirclement plan was losing the support of the German generals. Even Hitler had his reservations, but he knew the Germans needed an offensive victory, and he was counting on technologically superior German equipment to do it. The German attack began on July 5, 1943. German commanders were hoping for an immediate breakthrough that they could pour their tank divisions through immediately afterwards. Such hopes were quickly quashed as the Germans only pushed 6 miles into the Soviet salient. Within days of the stalling offensive, it was clear to German leaders that they were not getting anywhere and did not have the strength to achieve a breakthrough. By July 10th, all progress in the north had stalled. The German attack in the north stalled within a week. On July 12th, the Soviets launched a counteroffensive at the rear of the German attacking divisions. German forces in reserve moved to counter them. The Soviets managed to hold off the German attack through their counteroffensives. Their counteroffensives failed, but were enough to prevent a German breakthrough. This led Hitler to cancel the offensive on July 14th, 11 days after it had begun. 3 days later, all subsequent attacks in the region ended. A need for Axis troops in Sicily and France required the Germans to shift their forces. The impact of the battle was mostly a result of the Germans' need to win it. While the Soviets lost over 3 times as many men and tactically lost the battle, the Germans failed to achieve the massive breakthrough they were aiming for. This meant the battle was a strategic and political victory for the USSR, and the Germans would never recover or have the initiative on the Eastern Front again. From that point onward, Soviet troops slowly pushed all the way to Berlin over the course of 2 more brutal years of fighting. In history, this battle is always seen as the biggest tank battle of history. However, I believe it represents something else. It represents the last time the Germans had a true hope of turning the tide of the war. German actions from this battle onward devolve into senseless acts of pride and less strategic decisions. The symptoms of the German military command's issues were already cropping up during the preparation for this battle. Future military leaders should consider not leaking the intel or giving the enemies months to prepare before launching the most critical offensive to date. The element of surprise is critical in any offensive. Thanks for watching, and I hope you will consider liking and subscribing for more videos like this.